All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin. All right, tomorrow you have a test, 25 questions, all multiple choice. Tomorrow you have only a map due and a focus because I've already submitted your primary scores. So, those are already online in case you haven't had the opportunity to check it out. So, please make sure you are taking a peek. So please make sure all of your assignments are in on time, of course. My projector is turned off and now it's turning back on. Friendly reminder, you have a test tomorrow. I am not going to be here on Friday. We have no school Thursday. Tomorrow you will be picking up a map, which I've already completed for you. So you're going to take a picture of it. There is no primary next week. So we're grateful for that. On Monday and Tuesday, when I do see you, we will just be working on lectures. Sounds good? All right, here we go. So, who can raise their hand and tell me where we left off? No one has any idea. Victoria, thank you so much.
Unilever Corporation.
Okay, so we are talking about business structures, okay? And Unilever is a perfect transnational company that covers all of these places, yes? All right, here we go. So, effects of industrialization is where we're going to start. Oh my goodness, let me sit where I've always sat. I'm so happy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, consumerism. We live in a consumer society. This is when it begins in the Industrial Revolution. So these are the first time we're seeing these things. Consumerism is when people buy new things as economically possible. So if you have the means, do you buy more new things or less new things? More. If you are poor, as soon as you get money, what do you do with it? Spend it. That's consumerism. Consumerism, as soon as you have the availability of the economic funds, you use it. Okay? Who has bought something in the last 24 hours? Girl, I spent like $50 last night on Amazon at like 9:30 at night. Okay? That is consumerism. The moment we get money in our hands, we spend it. Okay? Advertisements are going to begin. Advertisements begin with the industrial age. Why does it really begin in the industrial age? Who can raise their hand and tell me? Come on. Ben.
Radio.
No. Victoria.
Because people are getting access to money, so they need to spend it.
For the first time, and this is important and you should be noting this, for the first time your average citizen is being handed cash or coins for the first time. Beforehand, they were trading commodities, right? I'd have something, you'd have something. Now with the industrial age, more people are working real jobs which give them a living wage, which means they're going out and having money in their actual pocket. So now companies are trying to get you capitalizing on that consumerism, trying to get you to do it. Now, what are we seeing in these advertisements? Abby?
Leisure products.
Leisure products. We're also seeing happy, smiley people, yes? Because consumerism teaches us if we buy the next item, we'll be happier. That is all starting with this age. That, yeah, your life in the factory sucks, but with the money you have in your pocket, you can buy this really nice waistcoat, and that'll make you happy. Okay? That's the same thing that we're seeing on social media today. It's the next evolution. We have all of these social media stars telling us, like, oh, if we buy this, if we do this, then we'll be happier. It's the same type of thing. So, for the first time, the middle class has money at disposable income, and they have money in their hand. Okay? With this, we're also seeing leisure activities. Okay? Bicycles are a huge thing for women. Ladies, this is the first real thing that middle class women have access to that gets us away from the men in our lives.
Yay.
It's a huge deal, and this is actually going to be a huge moment that is going to push feminism. Because for the first time, women have control over the vehicle. that they're in. Only upper class women would ride horses pretty much on a regular basis. As for leisure, I mean, of course, all women would know how to ride a horse if you have them, but it wasn't done often. Only very wealthy women would ride horses, but bicycles became so popular, women had access to it. So for the first time, they controlled stuff, and that's going to lead to feminism. You're also going to see that riding bikes is going to create tourism. Okay, tourism is going to start because people want to ride their bikes in pretty places. Does anyone know what will be the first tourist destination for bicycles in the United States? No. New York is a nasty place to ride a bike at this time. St. Augustine, Florida. We had more bicycles per capita than any other city in the country because there's plenty of places you can go. It's nice and flat, and it's really pretty. And all the wealthy used to go there. Don't forget that. St. Augustine used to be one of the wealthiest capitals in the world, in the United States. All right. Sports are going to grow. When we talk leisure activities, we're also talking the rise of sports. Okay? So, what we're going to see, Europe is going to have soccer. Here in America is baseball. Okay? And that is going to be a huge transition. Now, sports are going to develop along class lines. The wealthy are going to love tennis and golf. And the lower class is going to love rugby and American football. Okay? So it is important. Now, why do wealthy and poor people like different sports? Why? Think about it. It makes logical sense. Victoria? Access to them. And what sports are really expensive to play? Tennis, golf, okay? Really cheap sports are soccer, okay? Because all you need is one ball, and all of a sudden, you can have 24 people playing a game, okay? Hockey is pretty expensive, so hockey isn't going to become very popular yet. Basketball eventually will become popular here in the United States. One ball, you just need two nets. People can play for a long time. So we're starting to see that division. Polo, is that a wealthy sport or a poor sport? Wealthy, because you need 4 horses to play polo. Every person needs 4 horses, okay? So we're starting to see those types of things. So another big thing is entertainment. The idea of going out for entertainment is going to be a new transition. With people with money in their pocket, they're happy to spend it. And that spending is going to become in forgetting how bad their working conditions are. So they're going to go ride their bikes. They're going to go watch sports. They're going to go watch entertainment. Okay? This is mostly music at this time. When we talk about go see entertainment, it's mostly music or plays, and we're starting to see the beginning of movies. Now, movies are made for poor people. Why is it poor people?
Because they can see it over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. They can see it over and over again, and it's only 5 cents. And once you record a movie, the cost is done. Yes? I mean, you got to publish it and print it and all that stuff. But if you go to a play, what do you have to pay?
A lot of money.
You have to pay a lot of money to pay for the actors, all the people behind the scenes, and all that stuff. So plays and going to see live dramas is very expensive, and that's going to be for the wealthy. How many plays have you seen in real life by professional companies?
3.
Cool. How many movies have you seen in a movie theater?
A lot.
Exactly. That's the disparity between the wealth of them. Okay? And we're also going to see the rise in public spaces. In the 1880s especially, we start having this whole idea of public spaces, where we're improving the quality of people's lives by having more green spaces. This is about the time that we dedicate Central Park in New York. Okay, this is when we start having national parks that are going to be designated for no construction. Okay, all of those things are starting to happen now. Why? Because people have money to go ahead and go visit them. All of our national parks are available because we pay taxes to protect them, and we pay for access to them to keep them protected. Now, for the first time, Americans have that money. All right. Perfect. All right, skip a space, center it, reactions. Aren't you excited we're starting to see a world that looks like ours? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, so reform movements. What is a reform? Who can just simplify it for me? What's a reform? Ben?
It's basically like when you like get rid, like you modify something.
Yeah, you change it, and hopefully it's for the better. Yes, most reforms are typically for the better. Every once in a while, we're going to come across a dud, but most of the time, it is for the better. So when we're talking about reform movements, they're led by labor unions. Okay, so labor unions still exist today in 2021. However, are they as powerful as they used to be? No. Okay, so we're going to start coming up on the age of the power of the labor unions. What is a labor union? What do you got? Brady, what do you got? What's a labor union, dude?
It's like a group of people who are fighting for all the rights for the workers in factories.
Okay, it is, so when you write down labor unions are workers who unite. They are workers who unite under one body to bargain for better working conditions. Okay, bargaining. What do I mean by bargaining? When I say bargaining, what does that term imply, Isabel?
They're kind of like going back and forth, trying to get what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. For instance, we have a teachers union. I'm not a part of the teachers union, but there is one for Hillsborough County. And even though I'm not in the teachers union, they still argue for my behalf. As a bargaining unit, they show up, and I think we can all agree every year teachers want more pay, yes? So we walk in into these talks with Hillsborough County saying, hey, the teachers want more money. And Hillsborough County obviously doesn't want to pay us more money because they have a bottom line as well. And so we say we want an extra $10,000. By the end of negotiations with exchanges for one thing and other, we go up maybe $1,000, but we get other benefits or something like that, or some other curtailed component. Does that make sense? So Hillsborough County gets something, we get something, we give something, Hillsborough County gives something. That's what bargaining is. It's going back and forth. And that's how labor unions work. They bargain with the employer on the behalf of the employees. Okay? So the major reforms by labor unions are for wages. Who can tell me what wages are? What are wages, and what's the difference between a wage and a salary? John? Okay, so a wage is how much you get paid per day. Okay, you clock in, you clock out, or it could be calculated by week. So your wage is how much you get by being on the clock. You only get paid when you're on the clock. What is a salary? What is a salary? What do you got, Isabel?
It's your annual income.
It's your annual income, okay? I'm a salaried employee, which means I think I make, and you can totally check this online because I'm a public serving employee, so you can look at all of my paychecks if you wanted. I think I made like $53,000 2 years ago. Obviously, I took last year off, so I made $0. But I think I made like $53,000 from Hillsborough County the year before when I was working full time. That's how much I made. Does that calculate how much time I actually sat in the classroom? No. I also get paid time off. So if I use it, like for instance Friday, I'm doing paid time off, I'm still getting paid even though I'm not here. That's what a salaried employee gets. They get paid time off or paid leave. If you are a wage worker, do you get time off? Paid time off? No, these are the differences. Is it better to be salaried or wage? It's better to be salary, but who do you think gets paid just a little bit more? Wage, because it's easier for the employers to give wages, and it's better for them because they pay you for exactly what you've done. So technically, wage employees are technically higher per hour, but there's no job security. Do we see the trade-off here? And these are things you're going to have to think about when you start looking for your profession. They're looking at low wages, they're looking at working conditions, and hours. I think we talked about hours, okay? So, when we're talking about the beginning, the government was anti-labor union. You need to know that. All governments are anti-labor labor unions at the beginning. Why? Think about it. Why? It goes back to what we kept saying last week and how we're going to keep going back to. Max?
It's because the government saw them as a threat to the economy.
There, beautifully said, Max. Couldn't say it better. Yes. The governments are going to stifle labor unions because they saw them as a threat to the economic boom these countries are seeing. Okay? So, some things that we're going to see labor unions, if you tried to start to unionize your company, you could be getting death threats, you would be fired, you could be beaten up in the middle of the night, muggings, all of those things could happen. Like, it was really hard to unionize a lot of these places. Okay? So, eventually, the governments will allow unions to exist and unions will win. Minimum wage. Okay, this is the lowest you can pay per hour. Limits on working hours. So 9 to 5 becomes pretty universal. Overtime pay. If you go over 40 hours, you get more money. Like, for instance, my brother is a police officer and he gets overtime. Anything over 40 hours by contract, because of his labor union, he gets time and a half for any minute over 40 hours. Okay? And then 5-day work weeks. That becomes universal because of our labor unions. Now we have a holiday to celebrate how accomplished our labor unions were at the 19th century, 18th and in the 20th century. What holiday is it? Labor Day, yes. That's supposed to be a day of celebrating the fact that our labor unions, for us, the middle class, have accomplished so much by improving the quality of life, improving our wages. All of that's about Labor Day. That's what Labor Day is for, instead of just barbecues. Don't get me wrong, I love a good barbecue. Hot dogs are one of my favorite foods, and I know that's very juvenile, but I drink it with a really lovely Cabernet, so it's fine. Yes.
What was after minimum wage?
Limits,
Oh.
overtime, 5-day week. Okay. So, labor unions, incredibly successful in the 20th, really the 1900s, we're going to see, end of the 19th, early 20th. Okay, so we're also going to see the demand for voting rights, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, labor unions are going to be a huge part of it, because once they get this success in the workplace, they try to change the laws. And that's the thing. Changing one workplace is good for those people, but by changing the laws of the government, you're going to improve all people. So they're going to start focusing on that. What we're going to see is men, all white men, will pretty much be able to vote anywhere in the West by 1832. All white men in the West will be able to vote pretty much by 1832. Okay? Then, it is not until the 20th century or the 1900s do we start enfranchising. What does enfranchising mean? Come on now, it's on the topic at hand. Katie? Giving the right to vote, enfranchising. It's not until the 20th century do we start giving these rights to men of color and women. Who comes first? Men of color. Yeah, because women voting, wild. Okay, so they're going to give it to men of color first, and then much later we're going to get women starting to vote. Now, who is the delayed? Women of color. They delay women of color even after white women get the vote. So it's a huge component. Okay. So mostly around the country, mostly around the world, by 1935, pretty much all women in the West have the right to vote. No, that's a lie. That's a lie. 1950, most women in the West. My bad. We're not even voting in 1935. What do you got?
You said all white men could vote.
All white men are pretty much voting by 1832. White men, of course. Okay, child labor is going to be eradicated. Okay, children are considered 16 and under, by the way. Okay, so if you are 15 and under, 16 is an adult. I'm sorry. 16 and older is considered an adult. 15 and under is a child. They eradicate those. And we're also going to see that all children from age of 5 to 15 are mandated for schooling. With the eradication of being able to work, they implement public education. Does anyone know what state in the Union is the first to implement free public education? Massachusetts. What state in the Union in 2021 is the highest in education? Massachusetts. There you go. Which one's the lowest?
Or not.
No, we're like 15.
Wyoming.
No, Alabama. Alabama and Mississippi are neck and neck at the bottom. What do you got?
What was the date for when all men can vote? Like
1823. All white men, not all men. All right. Here we go. So, intellectual reaction. Hold on, I just want to see. I think I'm doing 2 videos today, huh? All right. So, intellectual reaction. John Stuart Mill is the biggest. Okay, John Stuart Mill, he is all about utilitarianism, which is right here. Okay, the greatest good for the greatest number of people. He thinks capitalism is way too harsh. He thinks capitalism is way too harsh. He is not, okay, he is not anti-capitalism. He just thinks there needs to be more reforms, that it needs to be more structured. He's not completely anti-capitalist. Okay, so you do need to know that. Then of course you have Karl Marx. We've talked about him on the back of your map, so these are things I'm not going to go into crazy detail about because we've already talked about him. Karl Marx, he wrote the Communist Manifesto, of course. Okay, he is pro-socialism. Okay, and he thinks, he thought governments were not going to reform, which is why they would overthrow. Do we remember this? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. However, what did governments do? Reform. So guess what never happened? The socialist overthrow that eventually lead to communism. So you have John Stuart Mill, who is going to really push for improving the lives. This is what governments are going to do. Governments favor John Stuart Mill. Governments are anti-Karl Marx. Okay? Between these two, they'd much rather deal with John Stuart Mill's philosophies than Karl Marx. So that is why governments begin very positively responding to reform movements and labor unions and stuff like that because they don't want what could possibly happen under Karl Marx. Okay. Perfect. All right, to the board, super quick. On your whiteboard, please tell me, what is it called when people are buying lots and lots of goods with every economic opportunity? We are huge victims of it, and I think Amazon has made it easier. Sydney,
Consumerism.
what is it called when we are, when workers are unifying in order to go to the bargaining table with more power? Good. What do we got? Ava? Labor unions. On your whiteboard, please tell me, who is the guy who believed labor unions and reforms could improve society that would take the edge off capitalism and make it more economically viable for more people? Who is it? Jackson. Mr. Jackson.
John Stuart Mill.
There you go. On your whiteboard, who believed that there is no way to fix capitalism and the only way to change society for the better is to overthrow it? Elise. Karl Marx. On your whiteboard, what institution begins during the industrial age? People are now going to be solicited for selling of products. For the first time, you'll see happy, smiling faces trying to capitalize on the middle class. What am I talking about, Katie? Advertisements. With middle class having such terrible jobs in the factory, they're looking for escapism, and they're going to start looking for what? This will be seen in sports teams, movies, music. Good. What am I looking for, Victoria? Entertainment or leisure activities. Perfect. On your whiteboard, please tell me what are two major reforms that the labor unions are going to go for and succeed in. Good. Max.
Wage and hours.
There you go. On your whiteboard, please tell me what is the dude. No, let's go. Okay. All right, Ottoman responses. Oh no. If it's Ottoman, how do they feel about industrialization? Yeah, they're like, oh no. All right. So, we're in the mid 1800s, and I would write that. So, Ottoman responses, mid 1800s. They are far behind the rest of the world. Okay, what place in the Ottoman Empire is the only place to have even a factory or two? They have 3, I think, total. Ben? Egypt is the only place in the Ottomans that have done any attempt of industrialization, and they haven't done that much. Okay, so what we're going to do in 1826 under Sultan Mahmud II, you need to know that name. In 1826, Sultan Mahmud II is going to try to modernize, and put modernize in quotes, please. He is going to abolish Janissaries. Oh, fun fact, you can remind me what a Janissary is. What's a Janissary? Natalie?
It is like someone of slave origin.
No. Dawson? Christian boy who's enlisted in the military. Christians were slaves. So you're not horribly wrong, but it's the Christian component. All right, so Janissaries. You need to know they're abolishing Janissaries. Okay, so they're trying to eradicate this religious component because we have the Napoleonic Code is happening in Western Europe. We're also starting to see military tactics by Europeans. The French are going to be leading that cause. No more feudalism. They're starting to create postal service, which is a big deal. Okay, so Sultan Mahmud II is the first one to do it. Skip a space. Tanzimat reforms. Tanzimat reforms after Mahmud. Okay, they are trying to eradicate corruption. There is a lot of bribery. Has any of you been to another country that accepts bribes? Yeah. Italy is super notorious for it. The French are super notorious for it. If you go to the French embassy, if you go to the American embassy in France, like even to get into the building, you have to pay like the French police guard like €2. Why? Because he can make you pay it. My brother was just in South Africa, and he had to pay $200 to gain access to a building. It was 200 rand, so it's like $20 American, but just to even access a building, a police officer came up to him and said, to go in this building, you need to pay me $20. And he was like, okay. So, it happens. The Ottoman Empire was incredibly horrible about it. We started having secularized education. So they're trying to secularize their country. They're trying to make it less religious because all Western countries are becoming less religious, and they're trying to keep up with it. Okay. Hadi Human. Okay. You do need to know specifically, he is going to overturn the legal system. They are going to update it, and they are going to push for equality for all men, for an education, governments, and justice. So all men in the Ottoman Empire for the first time are going to be treated equally under this new system. So they are really trying to eradicate this foundation of religious peril. Okay, depending on what religion you are, is going to affect your whole ability to promote and change your life. Now they're trying to eradicate it. All right. So, what we're also going to see, we're also going to start seeing the industrialization because of these reforms, and that's what I would write for your next subheading. Because of these reforms, we're going to start seeing changes. So, because of these reforms, we see more money in the Ottoman Empire. There's more actual cash moving around. Okay, we're going to start seeing some, and I would underline some, industrialization. Okay, a big star, women lose more rights under these reforms, if you could imagine. Because under the religious component, women were protected by the religion they were under. Now that the religion component has been taken out of the law, they have even less rights, if you could imagine. Okay, skip a space, center it, Young Turks. Okay, this is in the 1870s, and I would acknowledge the date. The Young Turks. Okay, it's the 1870s is the time he's doing it. Okay, so originally they got kicked out of the Ottoman Empire. Okay, but then they're going to come back and lead a coup, C-O-U-P, with a little fancy little attaché on top of it. The little arrow that points up above the P. A coup? What's a coup? What's a coup, Abby?
So they like take over the government.
Yeah, it's when they attempt to have a coup, when they overthrow. I mean, I'm not trying to get political. However, January 6th, yes, when they were trying to stop the election counting going on inside the Capitol building, yes. That's an attempted of overthrowing the government, yes, of changing how things go. Okay, same thing's happening here. However, they are going to be successful. But we're not going to talk about them yet. We're going to come back to them, but we need to know they're coming. So the Young Turks are going to be successful in a coup, and they'll take over the Ottomans. Okay. Skip a space, center it, China. Oh, sweet heavens. Okay. We are hauling. Here we go. Okay, so China. China is being inundated by Europeans. You need to know that. China is filled. How about filled? Is that better? China is filled with Europeans. Due to the Opium War and unfair treaties that the Chinese were forced to sign, giving Europeans complete control over the economy. So, China is filled with Europeans because of the Opium War. And the Opium War, they hold China hostage and say, sign these contracts, and we won't kill you all. I'll kill all of you. So what happens is they sign the contracts, and then the Europeans get their economy. Who's leading this conflict? Who makes people sign contracts, people? Who's obsessed with contracts? The British. Okay, this is really spearheaded by the British, but everyone else will follow suit, including the Americans to a degree. Okay, so Chinese fight back is your next is your first subheading. The Chinese fight back. The first one is the self-strengthening movement. Okay, so the Qing Dynasty, Q-I-N-G, the Qing Dynasty try to modernize to fight off the Europeans. Okay, so they're going to start producing Navy ships for the first time. Why doesn't China have any Navy? Why don't they have a Navy? Ben?
They don't leave.
They don't leave. Everyone comes to them. So they've never really had a navy. So for the first time, they're like, oh shit, we need a navy. Now, who is the largest navy in the world in 2021? No.
China.
2021? No. In 2021, who was the largest navy in the world? China does. China has the largest navy in the world. Okay? Now, who has more of the ones that planes fly off of? Yeah, the U.S. has more of those. Not airports, no. The ones, huh?
Air Force.
Yeah, but yeah, those, what are they, carrier planes? Aircraft carriers. See, this is how limited I am in my modern day knowledge. Aircraft carriers, America has more. I think we're like 4 or 5 above China, but they're working on it. Anyway, here we go. You do need to know, ladies and gentlemen, the self-strengthening movement is going to fail because the Europeans are going to dismantle it. And this will piss off who? The Chinese people, absolutely. Okay, so the self-strengthening movement is about the Chinese trying to protect themselves from the Europeans, but who's going to dismantle it? Europeans, and that's really going to piss off the Chinese. And so, after that, we're going to have the 100 Days Reform. Okay, after the 100 Days Reform, okay, they are going to realize they're significantly behind the rest of the world. China is going to recognize they're significantly behind the rest of the world, and they are going to try to modernize very quickly. In how many days? Look at you guys, figured it out. Okay, so the self-strengthening movement is going to fail. It's going to be dismantled by the Europeans, which we'll get a little bit more clarity of next week. And then they're going to revolt to the 100 years, which is drastic. You need to acknowledge it. It is drastic. So they're going to abolish the civil service exam. What has been around since the dawn of time? There you go. They are going to establish Western-style industrial, commercial, and medical systems. So they realize they're so far behind, so they try bursting into quick movement. Who are they mirroring here? What country are they trying to copy, Ben?
Germany.
Oh, no. Okay.
Britain.
They're the only Asian country that's industrialized. Japan. They're trying to do this quickly. They're trying to leave some of their cultural components behind in order to have some control going forward. Okay? Now, okay. So, the 100 Days Reform is super harsh. They're trying to mimic Japan's industrialization. How's it going to go for them? Yeah, guys, remember, China doesn't industrialize in the 1950s or in the 1870s. How's that going to go? It's going to go very poorly. It's actually going to weaken China. You need to acknowledge that. So, what is going to happen is, okay, Dowager Cixi. Cixi. Dowager is like the emperor's wife. Okay? Okay, so she's going to try to lead a coup. See ya. You have a test tomorrow, 25 questions, all multiple choice. I'll be posting 2 videos today. Or would you rather my PowerPoint?
Video.
Okay, well, people want it. Who am I to oppose? See ya.